What if before you run into that encounter, you sent Gal to get another one, and he's not there to get it? Oh my! I would break it. I'd break the game.
You would rage?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, good one, Kenny.
All right, 10 points to Kenny. Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 357. It is a director's episode.
Woo woo.
But before we get there, Nolan, you've already pulled out your prop. You've got your Steam Deck, and we're going to take the entire start of the episode to let you gush.
Well, you can't really see in frame for those of you watching video, but my Christmas tree is up, and it is lit, and it is Christmas here for me. What did you ask me?
It wasn't a question. It was just gush about your new purchase.
It was a command. Okay. It's really, really good, and it's really worth the money. I was skeptical, as most people would be, with a purchase that large. I had buyer's remorse immediately. But I shouldn't have. I saved for a really long time, so it hit my bank account 0. It was fine. It's still just a lot of money. I bought the base model. I was going to get the biggest one, right? Like biggest one meaning the biggest storage. I went with the lowest entry point, and I'm so glad I did. The only difference is that they all perform the same. The only difference is the most expensive one has an anti-glare screen, but I'm never in bright light playing usually, and it's fine. And I bought a micro SD card, so I have like infinite storage. It's so cool, guys. It is so cool. And I turned it into a retro gaming machine, so it's like going to be really sick for
perfect.
For our purposes.
You must have paid a lot of money for that SD card if it has that much memory.
Black Friday sale, my friend. I honestly, guys, this was like it was like an ideal purchase all around.
Please tell me that your SD card is at least a terabyte.
No. Those are so expensive. Micro SD cards. I got a 512, which is the size of the biggest one, good. And it's enough. Like I'm not a guy that usually has like 10 AAA titles installed at once. I have one. Most of them though are like indie titles or smaller games, so yeah. It's fine. Well, I want y'all to have one. It's really cool.
Hopefully we'll win one or be gifted one for Christmas. Kenny, gift me one for Christmas.
Kenny, you have to.
That's not gonna happen.
Wait, I already I mentioned playing Path of Exile on it to Kenny, and he was like, "I'm gonna be out of town for 2 weeks for the new league, and it looks so fun." He's probably about to buy one. He was like, "Wait, did you, Kenny?"
No.
I think I almost got him to the other day.
But
I was so tempted.
Yeah, I mean, I know what this answer is. You have to be connected to the internet to play the PoE online, of course. Correct? Yes.
Correct. That game, yeah. But not all
dockable? Games. Is it dockable?
The dock is either out or coming out. They're selling it on Steam, and you can dock it to a TV, so I can play my PC library on this TV for my wife to watch.
Okay.
I mean, it's too good to be true. And they just let you hack it. There's Valve has put out tutorials online on how to open it up and modify it. Yes.
Wow. I love that.
I love that. There's one that shows you how to take out this hard drive and put in the bigger one. It's
that's pretty impressive. I love it. My only concern, and this is a silly one, it seems like the thumbsticks are way too high on that.
Okay,
do you feel that?
They are, and I noticed it at first too, but they're not too high. You get used to it for sure. It's comfy. I sat in bed last night and played some games, and it's very comfy. The D-pad is goated. Really good.
I'm glad that you enjoy your new Steam Deck. I hope that the experience doesn't make every other console terrible by comparison. Like in our retro game of the week, Final Fantasy VI.
Overview.
Well, as we said, this is a director's episode, and we want to welcome Friendly Cossack to the show. Welcome. We're glad that you're here with us.
Welcome.
Nice to be here.
We have a couple questions for you as we get started. One is, before we get to the game, let's just talk about the podcast. How did you find out about New Game Plus? How long have you been following New Game Plus? And which of the 3 hosts is your favorite and why?
That last one's new.
There is a right answer.
Yeah, I randomly I was on Spotify and on a road trip, and I was getting ready to play Tactics Ogre, not the new one, this was about a year ago. And so I found Retro Warriors, and then it recommended you guys. And yeah, ever since then, the only one I haven't listened to is Earthworm Jim.
Don't.
Because everybody says no.
Worst episode.
Okay,
All right,
so
answer the last question.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have to say Kenny, because he...
Yeah.
You know, he holds you all together.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm the
absolutely.
glue. Certainly.
I'm the
In his
glue.
own way.
The glute.
The
Yeah,
glute
that too.
that holds us together.
The glute
That clenches us
Oh,
together.
What? That
The
would be a good
glute.
T-shirt. Kenny's face, the glute that clenches us together.
Those comments on YouTube would come for us if we did that.
Okay. You could have chose any game that's 15 years or older and that we haven't played before, and you chose. It's interesting because we've been doing this for 7 years, and we've had many guests and many directors, and no one has selected this one. You got to here 7 years in. You got to choose the 6th entry in what some would say, me,
Yeah.
the greatest video game series of all time. You chose Final Fantasy VI. Why are you so smart?
Yeah, you know, I can't really talk about to why I'm so smart, but I do know that, like, so this was my first Final Fantasy. It was the one I have the best memories of, like sleeping over at my friend's house, spending, you know, up to 4 a.m, multiple days a week in the summer. And that's part of the reason I chose this is my best friend as a kid, Brandon, introduced me to Final Fantasy VI. And I don't know if you've ever done the janky 2-player on Final Fantasy VI, but you can assign individual characters to a second controller. And it's a horrible way to play, but we just wanted to hang out, and we both wanted to play so bad. We went through that whole entire ordeal like that. And he passed away about a year ago, and I'm just like, wouldn't it be great if we could do like a tribute episode for my best friend for our favorite game together. So
Best reason for choosing. Best reason.
Wow. So Brandon, correct?
Brandon, yep.
All right. This episode is
to
for Brandon. Final Fantasy VI. We on the show have played Final Fantasy 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, and 10.
We played 4.
Yeah, we played.
Yeah, with Anton.
We played all of those of the core series. So that's
Right.
almost one per year of the show, which
Yeah,
is interesting.
that's good stats. More than
It's
Mega
a
Man.
good rate.
And now we have played Final Fantasy VI, which came out in the year 1994. It came out after Final Fantasy V and before Final Fantasy VII. Thank you.
Wow.
I like that you know how numbers work.
Interesting.
It is a JRPG that was on the Super Nintendo, but has now made it to a variety of, not tons, but a variety of consoles since. And it was, of course, developed and published by Square, which is squarely in my era of video game, like maybe just a tad before, because my era was PlayStation 2, so maybe just a couple
I was
years
gonna
after.
ask Dustin, since you're like the fan here, did you play this like in the time, or did you come back to 6? Because
I did
did you
not
start
play-
with 7?
Yeah, I started with 7.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that being said, like I had rented a few Final Fantasies
Yes.
early on and got just a little bit into them, but 7 was my first true Final Fantasy, and then came back later. In fact, we've said it on the show before, but the 3 of us at one point in time had about a year crossover in the same state, and this is so good, guys.
This is dumb. No, this is dumb. You know what we did?
I do.
Okay.
We in the same room on different computers.
LAN.
played the same Final Fantasy separately.
We had a LAN party. I brought my giant honking tower and my monitor, and we played individually our
Yeah.
Final Fantasy
Emulated.
1.
There was no
we're
network
like,
in this
dude.
LAN.
I mean,
Like pointing.
That's friends, right? Like, be alone together.
Play
Yeah.
alone together, and that's
Yeah,
what
exactly.
we did. We would start the same Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Why did
and
we do
would
this?
play. We got through a few. I think both of you stopped around 2 or 3.
I stopped after 2,
Okay.
as did Kenny.
Kenny. Oh,
Yeah,
Maybe
I
Kitty
think I
stopped
got
after
through
1.
1 and then maybe pretended to start 2 with you guys, and then was like, nah, I did the one I like.
and I'm a completionist, so went through all 6.
Of
So
course, of course.
That
we
sounds right.
we started playing together, and then I was just lonely at the end.
And you joked earlier, this is, after 5 and then comes before 7. But it's crazy to me that 7 came out after this. That's such a jump. I mean, I know that happened with a lot of stuff that went to 3D, but it's just amazing to think about that.
Friendly, this was your first Final Fantasy. This is an interesting fact. This is one of Kenny's last Final Fantasies. It's his final Final Fantasy, meaning that this was your first time playing this game, wasn't it, Kenny?
I thought that was the case. As I played, there were a few moments that felt so familiar that I'm pretty sure I've at least seen someone play some of this game before.
Okay.
I haven't played
Me?
through it, so this was like my first time playing. Yeah, probably at some point in the past I've watched you play some of it. But yeah, this was my first time jumping in and going through the game myself.
Well, the opening cutscene's so iconic. You've
It's-
probably
yeah.
seen it somewhere. It's so iconic.
I mean, for 2D graphics, it's mind blowing. When I was a kid and just seeing those mechs walk around,
Yes.
the entire town come up, yeah, it was amazing.
The town comes up over the hill. Oh, my God.
There are a few scenes in this game that are iconic gaming history. So I
Yes.
think even if you haven't played this game before, you have seen it. Before I give the story, I do want to know from Friendly, 6 you've certainly played. What other Final Fantasy games have you played?
I've played everything except for 13 and its spawns. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, everything except for 13.
13's good.
13's really good. Nolan and I are some of the only fans.
I'm a fan. Yeah, we're the 2 fans.
I need to get my PS3 out of the basement and then blow all the air out of it and all the dust, because honestly, 5 minutes after starting that thing up, it sounds like it's gonna take off to the moon.
Well, I'll tell you this: with 13, might be the best OST out of all of them.
Which is saying so
Wow.
much, but it's super good, man.
All right, let me give the story for Final Fantasy VI.
Please.
It tells the story of the conflict between the Stolian Empire, which is striving to conquer the world, because that's what empires do, and a resistance movement known as the Returners. Magic and its source, espers or summons, are at the center of the conflict, and an amnesiac former imperial soldier, Tara Branford, is the key to both sides winning or putting an end to the war.
That's maybe the best Final Fantasy setup. I'm sorry, it
Yeah.
just is.
And just think about the complete turnaround from collect the crystals.
Right.
Hey,
Like
back off.
5. No,
Listen,
but
the
I mean,
crys-
5 games where it's just get all the crystals, and now it's just
True.
steampunk, sci-fi.
It's like steampunk conflict, war conflict, prisoners.
Yeah.
I mean, they take it to a whole nother level.
Gameplay.
Love that it's a female protagonist, and I love that she's a mage. Those are
Okay.
2 kind of standout things from other games in the series, because it's usually this emo boy, and he's a knight, the default sword knight, maybe a fighter from time.
He's an orphan, but
Yeah, or
and so
just
on.
a nobody. But there's so much. The setup for your main character, and I put main in air quotes because things definitely change, but she's the
Right.
main character of the game. The setup for her character is super interesting to me, and immediately makes me drawn to the story.
I would agree with you that Tara is the protagonist, I do think that it's smart that you put air or quotes around
Sure.
it, because I think the premise with this one, what they were going for, is that every playable character is the
my God.
protagonist.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
And they really go to extremes they hadn't done so far in the Final Fantasy universe to expand the roster and to expand the story of each and every character.
Yes.
Yeah, so many paradigm shifts. Like, 5 games that are story driven, and now it's like, oh, everybody has their own different story and reason that they're fighting, and they're all pretty good except for Cyan.
Except for who?
Oh,
And-
I love his
You don't like Sabins?
Cyan.
Cyan has a good reason to fight, but I just don't like Cyan.
I don't like him as a unit. As he's not very good, but his story, dude. The train.
Yeah, when his
part-
with you don't want to give too much
I
spoilers,
know.
although it's a long time ago.
The
But
train
his
part is, it's a heart wrencher.
I mean,
His
watch
family
this
stepping
right
on that
into
and they
it.
can't
train,
hear him.
dude.
That's emotion. That's so
I know.
good.
Yeah, but then it gets all creepy at the end and starts like writing letters to nobody.
He's helping a girl get through. She knew what was going on, anyways.
Yeah.
This is the largest playable character roster out of all mainline Final Fantasy games, except for like 14 online, whatever. Out of all of them, before
date?
and after, to date.
Okay, I'm not surprised by that because they throw them at you. But what's very cool is that in this game, you're not forced to use all of them, but you're forced to choose more than you normally would, because in the first 5 games, you kind of pick your party and you stick to it. In this one, there's a forced story split where you have to choose multiple times where you have to choose 3 different paths and like different character rosters to like, and then they come back together and then they leave again. It's like every character matters in this story, and I think that's so cool and so different than what we had seen up until this point.
Yeah, the diversity of the cast is wild as well. Like, not only are you getting a huge number of people, but in the past you've gotten lots of just like archetypes, and you just get like more than one warrior, and it doesn't really feel unique. They also strived really hard to make sure that each of these characters felt and played in a completely unique way. And so because of that, you're not only going to connect to their story, somebody's story is going to get you. Like, it may not be one person's, but it'll be another. Everybody's going to have a favorite, and maybe somebody they scoff at. But you're also going to have characters that you're like, oh man, I love when they're in the active party, because that shtick they have that's just there is so fun.
And also the endearing nature of the translation is like very unique as well, because it's kind of crappy, right? But like we're here for nostalgia, of course, and the Woolseyisms are amazing as well. So I love being able to see those weird translations on a playthrough again.
Speaking of weird translation, one of the things that I think is somewhat little known that I found fascinating is that they intentionally changed Terra's name when they brought it over to English, because the name that they were using was not common over there, but was far more common over here. And so if translated properly, our green-haired protagonist would have been named Tina.
Oh yeah. That would not have worked.
Terra, way better.
Yeah, what if Tina?
Karen,
Turner.
just like Karen.
You get this whole world that's crafted, and then all of a sudden it's Tina.
Tina shows up to save the day. Yeah.
So this cast is 12 characters that you do get, plus an additional 2 that are optional characters. And I will say, and I might be somewhat of an outlier here, but when I play games, I enjoy most characters and their story, which means that I like a lot of this game because it really goes hard there. But I think in having such an expansive roster, it waters down the full breadth that we could have achieved telling character stories with half of the cast, especially with some of the later characters that are just filler, in my opinion.
I think it's going to come down to preference. I am a little more accepting of this because I love Fire Emblem. And Fire Emblem is like a gross example of oversaturation when it comes to characters. So I'm not shocked by it. But what helped me here to make it even more palatable, the character interactions with each other really make it feel like they are together and they know each other, or they're getting to know each other, and they butt heads from time to time. And so the dialogue that's happening really helps fill the gaps there, and whatever you end up choosing for your party. I'm with you. There are several that I cared nothing for, but the other positive is that that's replay value. Like, you can go back through again and maybe choose a different party and have a different experience. Experience, not it's going to be that different, but
There are some options, though, a little bit. And again, not ton, but not just in like party selection, but also in kind of how you're building and playing your characters, because they give you, again, not a huge amount, but a good amount of options of items to equip and skills you're going to use and play style. And I like that I can sort of customize how I want to play a little bit.
Sure.
Even if you're having to kind of match the archetype of the character ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, in the Espers, like, it's kind of, I don't know, when I was a kid, there's some learning curve, and by that I just mean when I was a kid, I just, attach the coolest one, and then hope I learn the magic. But yeah, I didn't, it took me probably a decade before I realized, these Espers are boosting my stats after I level up.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
That matters.
definitely
Yeah.
matters.
It's key here, and I think it's an early. In fact, I would like to even just connect this to some other things. I think it's an early materia system. It's an early what they do in Final Fantasy VIII. Like, in fact, what blew me away this week in playing is that there are so many moments that happen in Final Fantasy VI that I saw again in games that came out later in the series.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yes.
Like, so many guys. Like, the opera scene, right? That is one of the most iconic scenes here. You get a similar kind of scenes in like Final Fantasy IX, for example, when they're doing their scenes. The never-ending staircase ascent that you get in Final Fantasy VII, that happens here kind of in another way. This is the first appearance of Biggs and Wedge, which are like iconic characters for the rest of the
Biggs
series.
and what was his name?
No, I think it's Vix and Wedge
Vix,
in
yeah.
but that's
Vix
just
Vapor
an
Rub.
improper translation. That's part of the improper translation.
Even game mechanics, you get a little bit of that too. Final Fantasy VII,
Yes.
I always thought enemy skill materia was so novel.
right?
Bro.
You get a character that can straight up leap over to your enemies, spend some time getting to know them, come back, learning their skills.
Getting to know him, he's like murdering them. He's like, give me your power.
But like,
yeah.
well, I just wanted to say the other thing, like one of my favorite things about these turn-based RPGs is the active time time bar that you can
ATB.
visually see. They started that in Final Fantasy IV, but I think it was behind the scenes. You couldn't see a visual representation of it. So this is the first time you could see, if I'm correct, the ATB bar loading up.
Such a
and
great system. Like,
a huge system for for a
Iconic.
lot of the games in the future.
I really love the relic system. It's not really a system,
Yeah,
but I love relics because it essentially takes the accessory slots from previous games and turns them into passives, abilities sometimes, and quality of life features like walking faster. That is the sickest thing to me.
Yeah.
And there's build diversity there too. Like in most of these Final Fantasy games, let's be honest, you have a character and they do something well and that's all. But you can kind of play around with it here, and I had so much fun doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, so the, in 7 with the materia, you have this whole combo ability that you can do. But you see that emerging in 6 with the relics, like if you get the, what is it called, the economizer and something, and the Genji glove, you can like attack 16 times or
Yeah.
The
something.
Master Scroll.
There's like hidden
Yeah,
combos.
that's it, Master Scroll. Yeah.
So cool to me.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to kind of what Kenny was saying about how, because I focus on the story. You've got a lot of characters, and there's a lot of stories, and I think that's good, but also bad. It's a double-edged sword. But they really worked with that on the gameplay front too, and every single character is different. It's different than Final Fantasy V, in which you can kind of make any character anything. It's more like Final Fantasy IV, where you've got an archetype with your character, but you can, the way that you build out that archetype can vary drastically. And like, in fact, I would love to know this, who your primary
Yeah.
party was.
I wanna
but
talk about
also
this.
and we can talk about it. I also don't think it happens until late where you can really pick which team. It
yeah.
takes 20 hours to get an airship on your own.
The game is very long. Very, very long. And I thought, getting a little early start on, I'd be able to like play through it, but no, I didn't finish it.
So either preferred party or just the maybe the 3 or 4 characters that you enjoyed playing with most.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to the point of the game where I don't have the airship yet, but the reins are off, and it's kind of like go do what you need to do and choose who you want to choose. And I had Edgar, Sabin, Locke, and Gao.
Oh, you kept Gal in the party.
And Gao is the center of my build, my party. I leaned heavily into his mechanic.
Don't laugh at that.
Kenny
He's the
did
best
the same thing.
character.
You can't control him. You just select what kind of ability or enemy type he's
great.
gonna mimic.
It's very strong though, very
really
overpowered if you farm the right
If you
ones,
do
and
it
it
right,
takes
yeah.
farming. But that was my party.
Interesting. So you didn't really rely on magic, it seems.
No, I stole with Locke to get all my healing items. I didn't heal with a
Interesting.
healer. I just had a ton of potions. Yeah.
Interesting. Kenny.
Yeah, I think Nolan and I have similar taste, weirdly, in this game. I loved Gao.
I love him.
I didn't make it as far as him. I also loved... Is it Edgar that has the tools and uses
Yes.
the auto crossbow?
Yeah.
Especially early, that thing is OP, but I had
Very
so
clutch.
much fun with it. And it was just a fun, different kind of thing. You almost always get, in these kind of games, especially early, magic is your only AoE,
Yeah.
And so having a physical attack
Absolutely.
that still lets you kind of clear groups felt so satisfying
And
to me.
doesn't
So I
cost anything to
absolutely
you.
love
Right.
it.
It's
Yeah,
free.
and it's free. You
ridiculous.
just can spam it. And so I really liked that and liked what that represents about like different approaches they're taking to these interactions. So he was fun. And of course love Tara. Like she's just great.
Yeah. I mean, my key party was led by Tara, and Magic. I mean, dude, she's powerful. And then Locke, Sabin, and Edgar. That was my team. So Edgar with his tools, Sabin with 2 earrings as my accessories because that
Strong.
boosts his magic power, and then using his blitzes, which
Strong.
Nolan had an issue with at the beginning of the week, but once you figured it out,
Yes, it's and for those of you listening that are struggling with this, I can help you. If you're playing the original like I did on SNES, my problem was I was doing the inputs just fine. I wasn't tapping them quick. You have to release it quick, or else it's going to register 2 direction inputs. So instead of 1 down, it's going to give you 2. So you need to go tap, tap, and not tap, tap. You have to really do it fast. So that was my problem. But once I got it, blitzes are OP, and I love Sabin.
They're strong, but getting it right is annoying.
Oh, Kenny.
I learned it well enough to pass the mandatory story
He
beats,
couldn't.
and then just didn't want to deal with it. And so
Oh, no.
I know it makes me
That gimps you, dude. He's so good.
Yeah,
So-
that I know he's so strong, and I was missing out. I acknowledge that, but he was just a fight attack for me, and so I tended to not prioritize him because I
His
chose
auto
not
is so
to deal with
bad.
him. It's too much.
My 8-bit-do SN controller, the really nice Bluetooth Super Nintendo one, sucks for this game because
This
it's
one?
super sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. That's my
Yeah.
problem. You have to.
So, no, yeah, I went to the I went to the local game store and just got a used Super Nintendo controller, and I'm like, perfect. I can
Yeah.
actually do blitzes now.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I remember doing this as a child. How come I can't do one blitz? And it was just,
pissing me off.
it was so sensitive. It would read all sorts of weird things.
who was your primary party or preferred party?
So that's Locke, Sabin, Edgar, and Celeste.
Solid.
Okay, so mine
Celeste
just
is great too.
swapping in Celeste for Terra, primarily for her runic ability, or you just liked her magic?
I just like her magic, and I just like her better than Terra.
Cool
I don't know.
character. Yeah. Runic is
Yeah.
also a really cool mechanic too that we haven't seen before. I don't think. Maybe.
No, I don't
Maybe.
think
But
so.
We all went Locke. That's interesting. I feel like a lot of people. I mean, he's not.
Stealing's actually good in this game. Like,
What is stealing?
stealing.
Oh, it's so yeah. That's why he sucks otherwise. But his steal is so. I love steal characters, and you get some good stuff.
Stealing good is good, but when you can change it to mug and you can do damage
yes.
and take, like, it's just-
Treasure hunting is good, guys.
yes, just in
He's
general.
treasure
He's a
hunter.
treasure.
Oh yeah. I love that, and I love in my version, like, later there's some scenes where he, like, picks open doors, and he'll pick open the door and then he'll face the camera and wink. Like, he's just a good character.
Yeah, treasure hunting, huh?
He's just a
Okay.
good character all the way around. This was also the first game that kind of had limit breaks, and let me explain. I don't know if any of you faced it. I didn't. They're called desperation attacks, and it's when you're in critical health. Each of your characters has a unique ability that they can do that is random. So you can't control it. It just may happen. But I got through the entire game and don't remember once one of my characters doing it. So I don't think it was implemented well.
Because you're too conservative. Like,
Yes, I don't
You're not gonna-
let my characters
you're not gonna
down.
get characters to the edge of death and let them sit there.
I don't like
so you're not
critical
gonna see
health
stuff
skills.
like that.
Yeah, I know. I don't like that either.
Friendly, did you know that? Have you seen that before?
I think I've read it, but yeah, I don't remember that, and
Right.
I don't remember it ever happening. I do like that's not the Shadow's dog killing things, right? That's different. That's just random.
Oh, I don't know. It
Maybe.
might be similar, but
Maybe it
I didn't
is.
even get that.
Okay,
don't
Shadow. The part of the game where Shadow could just leave, I
Yeah.
hate.
Yeah.
And I had to keep like. There are certain things you can do to keep him in your party, and I kept having to do it, and it was frustrating me. I don't. Shadow's like overrated to me. He's not that cool.
I like the idea, but there's been fan-made mods that keeps him in your party.
Yeah, because it's annoying. That's the dumbest mechanic. It's like, oh, too bad. Game's harder now. Bye.
Right, but like that's his story beats, right? Like he's
Yeah.
a loner, and he, you have to pay him
Right,
and stuff
right,
like
right.
that.
Okay, can we talk villain characters really quick, just while we're still here?
Oh yeah,
Is there a
Kefka,
villain in this one?
dude.
The Joker?
Kefka's amazing.
Kefka is such. I mean, there's so much that we've said that's iconic about this game, but Kefka is an iconic baddie
Villain, yeah.
in these games, and I think like the beats that you get of Kefka throughout this game are just so well done, and I love his design.
Yeah, so like he's not your typical standard like imposing villain, right? Like he's
No,
this
he's a
at
jester.
first he's
At
this
first.
bumbling jester
Yeah.
that is not even, he's not the emperor. He doesn't have much power. When you fight him the first few times, you hit him and he runs away.
Runs away,
Like he's,
yeah.
he's weak.
You're like, okay, he's
Uh,
a clown character, like he's
right.
a joke. Yeah.
But works his way into a position of power. I mean, he becomes like
Dude.
terrifying.
Yes.
Terrifying.
Terra.
Yeah, I mean, he's an
I
iconic.
mean, it's a Final Fantasy, so he has to become God at the end. Right?
Yeah,
You have to
exactly.
kill him. It's like,
Yeah, that is the rule.
It's good. You just talked about him becoming God and beating him. I got to beat the game this week. I didn't
crazy.
start the game this week and beat it this week because that would be insane, absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Since it's a director's episode, I knew it was coming a little bit early, and
Cheated.
So I started early and was able to just last night beat the game, and
That's impressive still, dude. That's a long game.
Still impressive, yeah.
I only skipped one little dungeon at the end of the game, and so I don't feel too bad about it, but did most of the other things. So I was able to do it, and that last boss is a doozy, man.
Really?
Like,
So
Yeah,
hard?
it's like a boss gauntlet. It's not just a boss. Like you have to work your way up to him, and it's
Ooh.
hard.
yeah, and forces you like if you ignored characters that you didn't like you have to then use them. And you're just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm telling you, I don't like that. Like I
Right.
want to be able to focus on the team that I want to focus on and build them up.
Yeah.
But in this game, if you don't build up almost all of your characters, then you're going to be screwed in game because you have to not only in the fight, but in the final dungeon, you have to split into 3 different teams. And that's hard, man.
Well, they're all the returners.
They
Not just 4 of them. They're all together.
Aged.
The soundtrack is okay.
Shut up.
I'm just kidding. It's one of the.
Alright.
I mean,
It's
one
almost
of the
not worth
best.
talking about because it's that good. It's,
Yo, do
it's
y'all know how good it is? Okay, in my first play, see, here's the thing. I had never played Final Fantasy VI, original. I'd always played. Well,
Oh, you
maybe I
played the
did one
GBA
time.
one
I
and
played
stuff?
the GBA version,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
a really good.
pretty
really good
faithful.
take
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
And this week I played. I haven't said yet. I played the Pixel Remaster version,
Ah,
which, guys, I cannot tell you the quality of life improvements. Like,
I know it looks great and the quality of life sounds really good, but the text sucks.
people say that.
That
looks like
that's
a-
drag and drop mod. You just grab it.
It's a mod,
The font actually already exists in the game. They just didn't enable it.
Interesting.
It looks terrible
I don't know
to me.
why
Anyways.
people. No, it's fine.
In typical Square fashion, I guess.
Yeah.
But just a quick few things. Every blitz command is at the top of the screen.
So nice.
I mean, that was the main thing, I guess, that did it for me. But there's a lot of things that, like, they make the visuals.
Is that
they
walk
give
speed
you-
a little faster?
Walk speed is super fast.
Yeah.
So I never had to use that relic that you talked about. But
I did. Running shoes.
when I was playing the first play, and of course the opening cutscenes, right, with the mechs walking across the snow and the music kicks in. Seriously, like I don't think I've ever gotten emotional on a first play before, but not only because of my Final Fantasy connection, but dude, that moment, and then there's many moments where that music just kicks in, and this is Super Nintendo, and it's
Yeah.
orchestrated, and it is phenomenal.
I have here. There's so much emotion across the board with the soundtrack.
Emotion.
It pops up when you're not expecting it, and you're like, dude, why'd this get real? And then like you just care about the characters more. It blends into the story so seamlessly. And yes, all Final Fantasy soundtracks are good, but that's what makes this one stand out to me, is that it's just so integrated into the story.
Uematsu was the composer, and he is for Final
Yeah,
Fantasy.
God.
He said that this felt like an ending point to him, that regardless of what would come after, he could quit composing music for video games without any regrets because he had created this particular soundtrack.
Oh my God, what a quote. Wow.
And
Yeah.
and what
I still
what,
want to go see the symphony. They do like an orchestra version of it. I needed to go see that.
Dustin, haven't you been?
I went and saw the Final Fantasy VII remake one and thought that it was going to be great, but that I wouldn't get emotional. The first note of the first song comes on, and I lose it. I
Crying,
lose it.
just bawling.
I lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the music here is great. Graphically, I mean,
Dude.
I think one of the best on the consoles. It's
okay.
phenomenal.
I played the OG this week. I played Final Fantasy 3 for the SNES.
Yeah.
And it looked like a remake or a remaster. The original one is so incredible graphically. The pixel art is top notch, and the different areas of the map just are fantastic. And the animations, dude, that's what really shocked me. I was like, these animations are like leagues ahead of other RPGs, like even on this console. It's just, it looks so good.
It was fun because it's the first one that was more steampunk inspired than ever before. So like graphically, visually, you're getting tons of like mechanical stuff and mechs. I mean, we mentioned mechs,
Yeah.
and even like the towns and the buildings at times
yes,
are these
steampunk
like,
towns.
steampunk. And Final Fantasy has always had a sci-fi fantasy blend, but I think this one was more than ever before, which again paved the way for Final Fantasy VII, which
Yes.
is the most steampunk
Yeah.
that you ever have, right? But I love seeing those visuals because you still get the fantasy stuff, right? Dragons and swords, but you're getting these mech
You're also
stuff.
getting castles that transform and then sink and
Yeah.
disappear.
That's
That
one of my
was so
favorite
cool
moments.
to me.
When
Well, yeah,
Edgar's like,
when
let's go.
Well, when you go into that castle and you notice fans
Yes,
on top of the
vents.
vents
And
on
you're
top
like,
of the
why?
spires, and I'm like, what is, dude? Like,
And
it's
then
just so impressive.
He's like, execute Order 66, and then they all and then they jump off on a chocobos and escape. That moment, that is so good, dude.
Okay,
Yeah.
we talked about some of the things that aged well, but what are some of the things that don't age well, or just some bad things about it? I'll just say, we've mentioned it a few times. I think the original English translation is not good, and not only does it change some of the names, but like it's not helpful. It's again one of those things where like in the menuing it makes it rough as well, and that's one of the factors of like translation that they made better for GBA, better for the Pixel remaster, better for PlayStation, but this original one, I don't like
I've
it.
seen worse.
Oh yeah.
Well, sure.
If I didn't,
Like, we've
if I
seen
didn't
some
have, like,
absolutely terrible.
yeah. if I didn't have nostalgia for I would think it was total garbage. But
Like, you mean the
I just like how
dialogue?
silly it is.
Just,
Yeah, it's silly.
it's
Oh,
cheesy, but
That and idioms, like things that don't translate well, or just like, what is it? Oh, it's that shadow. He'd kill his grandma for a nickel or something.
it's like, that's not a saying.
Yeah, but who wouldn't?
Yeah.
So like that's one of the things that didn't work for me. And I'll say one other and then if either of y'all have some. It's good that each of the characters operate differently, but there's very little to no explanation of how they operate and how to operate them optimally. And when
Blitz?
you've got
Hello?
12 trying to figure out Blitz or Gal's leap into a rage, or when if you don't know and you cause Gal to leap
Right.
and then he's not in your party anymore for the
Right.
next 3 or 4
If you don't throw him
battles,
food, you're like, what is this crazy thing? And then if you hit him, he's like, ow, and runs away. It's like, what? No, come back.
yeah, so like and having to like try to innately learn 12 or 14 different ways that characters operate.
Yeah.
It's without a guide, which
Definitely
who uses a guide.
I agree.
Then it's tough.
I do think that's a little bit of an aging thing. It's a fair complaint, and especially for like Blitz inputs, like what? But I will say, when you look back to playing these games originally, like pre-internet, and figuring stuff out and like trying things and just like discovering it yourself, there was some magic there. And I get that it's a lot and it's a burden and not everyone's going to do that. But I miss that a little bit sometimes, having everything sort of like just handed to you and not kind of.
But some of these
figuring
brick
stuff
you
out on your
from
own.
progressing. That's not good. You would never figure some of this out.
There's definitely
so-
places that are bad.
Well, this is like when games came with a huge manual, right? Like, so I agree with a lot of the stuff, but like, blitzes, you just read the manual. But like, yeah, who knows? Like, oh, I need to get Sid the fast fish. I hate that part. Like,
Oh yeah, and if
like, there's
if you don't, then side character. So it doesn't. It's not the end of the world. But side character DIEs. Like you don't. Like it's that's. There's some things like that
Yeah.
that they want you to know or figure out, and it's not the easiest.
going in and out of the auction house a million times to try to get that
To get the
Esper.
right
Oh
item.
my
right.
gosh.
Friendly, are there other things, because you like this game, obviously there's plenty to gush about. Is there anything else, age or otherwise, that frustrated you or you don't like or thought they could have done better?
So, yeah, but this is true of a lot of Super Nintendo games of that era. I just hate, like, grinding for RNG stuff. Like, when it's hard to steal something,
Yeah.
like, I don't mind doing it, like, 6 or 7 times, but, like, when you have to do it for 5 minutes or, like, 30 minutes before you can get it, come on. Like, I hate that.
Yeah.
I thought the Velt was a good idea. That's where you can
Yes.
get fight enemies that you fought before and get particularly get Gal's rages. But
Or steal.
the RNG there, I agree with you. Like, I don't mind grinding. I can grind for hours. But when it comes to the
Okay.
RNG here, I just think that it wasn't optimized or done well.
Well, I didn't even get the best. There's one
Stray Cat?
baby. I didn't
baby.
even get that one. I farmed for like literally
Right.
2 hours, and I did not see a stray cat that I could farm for the ability. And even then, what if before you run
Yeah.
into that encounter, you sent Gal to get another
Right.
one, and he's not there to get it? Oh
Right.
my! I would break it. I'd break the game.
Yeah.
You would rage.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, good one, Kenny.
All right, 10 points to Kenny.
Oh, and also there's something, okay, so the opera scene, great. Like, the chocobo scene, great. You have to use your imagination a little bit. But then there's that, like, interpretive dance baby-making scene with the espers. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
that was ever good, but, like, it was something that really stuck out as, like, very aged poorly.
It's like immersion breaking.
You wanted a full out Esper scene?
They could just
Cutscene,
fade
yeah.
to black and imply, like, you
HD.
show up with a baby. Like, you don't have to dance and then have your sparklies come together. and
Sparklies,
A
that's
baby
how-
pops out.
Hey, actually, that's what happens in my world.
The birds,
so.
the bees, and the sparklies.
Sparklies.
Yeah. I do think, however, that Final Fantasy VI is a very accessible Final Fantasy game. I know it might sound contradictory to some of the things that I've mentioned, but I've been trying to really I don't think I don't think there is very much grinding that is required in this game, which is super interesting.
Yes. Right.
No, there's overtly not, to the point where one of the ways people play this game as a challenge mode is to beat it with as low a levels as you possibly can. And it is beatable because so much of your progression is from items and equipment
and those mechanics
things
are
you
OP.
unlock, and not just raw stats, which means most of the time the answer to a problem isn't grind, it's figure out the answer to the problem.
Ooh, that's good. I rarely felt that things were unfair. I felt that it was relatively balanced, and I felt that if you can, I think it's more about becoming familiar with the mechanics rather than like grind and brute force your way through it, which is good because a lot of Final Fantasies before this, you are grinding. I mean, Kenny comes from the Dragon Quest era where you were out there in the field for a few real life days grinding on blobs or whatever they're called for a long time.
Slimes.
And but in 6, they really mastered it in tethering a lot of your progression to the story. And so you're going through caves for a reason. You're fighting bosses for a reason. Whereas Final Fantasies before here, you're kind of just doing it because it's Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Because of that, and maybe not just because of that, but one other, like, if we're complaining, the amount of on rails that you were, the sort of linear nature of this game felt a little more strict here than in some. Not like problematically so, and they certainly break it up with like different storylines, but I definitely felt a lot more just like I'm going through this story rather than I'm exploring this world.
Yeah.
Nitpick.
So like halfway through the game, you get that paradigm shift though, like where it goes from on rails to open world, right? Like,
I may just not have made it far enough.
Well, it
back.
takes a
So,
long
like,
time. to
Yeah,
get there.
like I put some time into this game, but not that much time into this game. So I'm
and I
glad
think
to hear that it
definitely
opens up.
aged well. Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
Because it was one of the first where it's just like at a certain point in the game, you could go beat it right away, or you could do like any number of adventures in any order you want. Yeah.
That's great. Then I retract my complaint.
There you go.
There are other Final Fantasy games in the series if you want to play them. The thing that's nice about Final Fantasy is that they're not directly connected to one another, so you can start wherever you want. And so Final Fantasy VI, I do think, is a good starting place.
I do too. I was going to say that.
Yeah. And then there are other versions of Final Fantasy VI that you can play. It sounds like Friendly Cossack, you're most familiar, have played most the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy 3 version. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just really like my Super NT. Like all of my Super Nintendo games look great on HD with that, and it's I like the authenticity of having the cartridge too. I don't know why, it just feels cool.
The one that I played most
you.
was the GBA version, and then this week I played the Pixel Remaster, which I think that's probably the definitive edition. I do know a couple of complaints that people have had are the text, which just blows my mind because, like, who cares? And there might be one or two other things that they talk about, but I think Pixel Remaster, in my opinion, is now the definitive version to play. Yeah, definitely. And then there's also a PlayStation version, which I've heard is fine, but the loading times are absurd.
That's so funny to me. What?
You don't need loading times in the Super Nintendo.
Weird.
Yeah, absurd.
Because it's reading it off the CD, right? I don't know.
Yeah. If you want a copy for your Super Nintendo, it's surprisingly not as bad as you might think. It's $18 used, right?
It's cheap.
No.
Oh, or $375 new. And Friendly Cossack is saying that I'm wrong. So let me check and make sure.
It's way more than that.
I always look.
I think it's in the 60s to 70s.
I always look on price charting, and so
Might have been like
I'm
an outlier
looking
posting or something.
at the Super Famicom as the console, the loose price. It says one sold for $18, 3 sales in the past week. So I don't know. I know that
Is that the Japanese
It's a
one?
Japanese
though?
one.
Maybe.
Yeah, must be.
Or somebody got a really good deal. This is a popular
Yeah.
game. But you should be able to get your hands on it if you want it.
Final thoughts
At the end of this episode, we want to give our final summarized thoughts on Final Fantasy VI. We will go through the three of us, and then we'll end with our guest today. Kenny, would you like to start us off? Because this was your very first time playing, probably,
It was.
Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah. There's a reason that the Final Fantasy franchise is wildly popular. There's lots of reasons that many people consider the Super Nintendo the golden era of these kinds of RPGs. And I argue that way. I know some people say PlayStation, Dustin, but you're wrong. This was where it was at. It's obviously a very, very good game. And so I think the more interesting thing to point out here is some differences in some of its sort of more direct competitors. Specifically, I want to talk about how I felt about this game versus Chrono Trigger, because that's the other wildly popular Super Nintendo kind of similar era RPG that we played. So loved both games. They're both absolutely amazing. I found this game I like the tone of Chrono Trigger better. I think this game certainly has some heart in places, but Chrono Trigger brought a lot more varied emotion and humor and just sort of, I don't know, heart behind it. Not that this game doesn't have some heart, but like I loved the vibe of Chrono Trigger more. But this game by far better in my mind on variety of fight styles, fight mechanics, interest there, and so like the gameplay elements I found more intriguing here. People may have different opinions there, but for top tier kinds of games, that's where they land and the difference for me. But it's not a question that this is a top tier kind of game. Well-loved title that I loved that we got to visit, so thank you for the excuse.
He just wanted to talk about Chrono Trigger again.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm actually surprised we made it this far into the game without talking about it. I know it's been a long time since we played it.
Sure.
But just that era of games,
Yeah.
and partly I say that to make sure people know how high we really are elevating our view of this game, because it literally is one of the best, which is why I'm making that comparison.
Nolan?
Yeah, so I do agree with Dustin that the Pixel Remaster is very accessible and probably where most of you should go to play it. Though I will say, though, if you get your hands on OG copy and you want to play on SNES, super playable. And like peak SNES experience. Like if you want to play like a physical retro game, you know, I think this is up there. I also think it's a very definitive Final Fantasy to play that represents everything pre-3D. Like if you want to get core Final Fantasy experience under your belt, start here and then go play the next best one. Well, 9 is better than this one, but go play 9 after that. And then you'll have like the two experiences in my mind. Stop shaking your head. This is my summary. 6 is fantastic. It was. I want to continue. It's just so long. Like it's a very long game, so be prepared for that. But so playable and so quality in every aspect of what I would define a game as that it's just it can't be touched. It's so good.
People have asked me this week what my favorite Final Fantasy list is, and I'm not going to give all of it right now, but I'll give it to show you where 6 is in my Final Fantasy list. So it's no surprise to anyone that's listening to the show, Final Fantasy 7 is at my top, followed by 10, and then 9, and then 6.
Okay.
And that's where it's been after playing it this week. I think that's where it remains. And it is, so of course, my favorite of the classic Final Fantasies. I think this is where they mastered what they were going for. Nolan, I think you said definitive Final Fantasy when it comes to pre-3D, and I agree with you. I think they had learned and built on. Those of you that know, Final Fantasy V is my least favorite Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy IV is the one that this one built the most off of. It built off of 5 too, but it's most closely connected to 4, which I think was a smart thing to do. And so they just elevated what they had learned, what they had done. Some of the best soundtrack, some of the best visuals, some of the best gameplay that you're going to get on the console and in the era. I don't know about comparing it to Chrono Trigger because what? But it is a It is to you. It is a wonderful JRPG. I'm glad that I was given an excuse to revisit it. It had been a long time coming. I would say play the Pixel remaster version because it just adds quality of life improvements. Although the one thing that I did miss the most was the original soundtrack. Because although this one is beautiful,
Yeah.
there's something about the OG.
It's magic. It's magic.
All right, we'll come to you, Friendly Cossack. You picked Final Fantasy VI. Give us your final concluding thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would love, just because of the memories and my friend and everything, I would love this game even if it was steaming garbage. But it's literally my favorite game. So, objectively, I think it's, if you're not used to retro games or you don't have any experience with Final Fantasies, I would say play this before 7, just because, you're getting a game that came out at the peak of the Super Nintendo's potential. And with 7, you're getting something that was great, but like at the time it was experimental. You get the sweet chunky polygons and everything. So if you're used to like modern games and you want to dive into a Final Fantasy, I would definitely start with 6, just because I think you get the most polished experience. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's just so many good memories. Gave me my best friend. It will always have a special place in my heart.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it to the show. There were many people that played along with us this week, and many people that wrote in. Before we get to some of the viewer commentary, our YouTube poll had 77% say yes, it's worth playing today.
Hi.
3% said no.
They like
one
Final Fantasy
one person.
5
And 20% have never played it before, which
Hey,
I
is
guess there's a
77 a
whole-
new high? A new record?
it's one of those
It's
up
high.
there. I
It's
feel like
up
we've
there.
hit 80 before.
Probably. Okay.
Having never played it before, I get it though. I guess there's a whole group of gamers that don't do JRPGs.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
some
Sure.
that don't touch retro. And that's why I agree with Friendly's notion that it gets your toes wet with retro games. So.
There were many people that wrote in. Honestly, I think this might be a record of the most that had played along and wrote in.
Wow,
And
nice.
It physically pains me to not be
I
able to read
know.
all of your commentary. So what I decided to do is pull a lot of your commentary and do a sentence from each of you. So I'm going to not all, because still that's too many, which is insane.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do
Summaries.
a sentence from
Yeah.
each of you and get
love
your
that.
quick reaction, guys. Okay,
Like it.
so Chris said, very few games trigger the immediate emotional response in me that experiencing Terra stomp across the fields of Narsh in her Magitech armor does.
That's what I'm saying. That's the top iconic moment in gaming in general.
Iconic. Longshot said, this game is a masterpiece for many reasons, but none more so than its primary villain, Kefka, who in my opinion is one of the greatest villains in all of gaming history. All right, guys.
Kenny!
Elias X said, I'd
Take
marry
turns.
Celeste in a heartbeat.
I would too. Are you crazy? Yes.
Celeste's bae. All right. Allegedless said, not sure it will be discussed in the episode, but 6 was unique in that it allowed 2-player to split up control of the character during the fights against enemies. My big brother, in true Big Brother fashion, allowed me to only play one character. My favorite, Shadow.
Friendly? You have any thoughts on that?
It's a horrible experience, but if
Don't
like,
do it.
honestly, like, don't do it, and unless you're like 12 years old and you really want to stay up to 4 p.m. and feel like you're both playing.
I love the idea, though, to be able to control
Yeah.
one of the characters in battle. All right. Harold said, this soundtrack got me into composing, and to this day I still use those MIDIs and compositions as reference points when creating music for several symphonic bands.
Gaming is real, people, and it affects our lives.
And it's art.
And it's art. That's cool.
Yeah. Kippo said, my favorite Final Fantasy, tied with 9. This game really does have it all. Well-rounded characters, a fantastic story, and dare I say, the best OST in the series.
It's hard to
You
argue.
dare.
It's hard to argue.
Nope.
Oh, I would argue that for sure. I think it's great, but there's better.
Yeah. 13. I think 13's better, arguably.
Keiko-san said, if you are a fan of RPGs or want to get into them, there are few better choices than this.
Yes. Entry
I'll
point.
agree it's a good
day.
on-ramp. A couple of people have said that.
Diabala Kel said Final Fantasy VI character roster is gigantic, but it's amazing because each character brings something new to the gameplay with their individual abilities.
Y'all don't play Fire Emblem. It's not gigantic.
Nolan, you have a problem.
No,
150
Gotta play
people.
Suikoden.
I mean,
Yeah.
like,
No, it's not that bad.
Gringe said Final Fantasy 3 has one pillar for each host. Great story and character for Dustin, brilliant music and art for Nolan, and a technical sequel to 4 and 5 for it ties all the best together for Kenny.
Tie it up.
Cecil said 4 was the first draft upon which many future JRPGs could iterate and improve on. 5 was an absolute delight with a goofy story and incredibly rich gameplay, and 6 is a natural evolution of the two with its extensive cast and melodramatic story combined with the Esper system for customization.
You can start to see Square's genius in the systems that they started to introduce in 6 that would be better down the road. It's kind of crazy, actually.
Building blocks.
Yes.
And then Clint said, it makes me cry. I suplexed a train and I enjoyed a lovely opera.
You can, and I did it, and it's so funny.
I always do it.
Super fun.
You know what's fun? With the Phantom Train, when you fight the train, you can throw a Phoenix down and kill it immediately.
Yeah,
but I
I didn't do
always
that.
wait to do that because I want to suplex the train.
Yeah, it's like tradition. You have to suplex it with the blitz.
Absolutely.
There were so many of you that wrote in, and please, if you're listening to this, go and read our viewer commentary in our commentary channel on Discord because it's so interesting to see everybody's varied, although mostly positive response
Yeah.
to our Retro Game of the Week. Thank you for writing in. Send your thoughts on the Retro Game of the Week each and every week to ngppodcast@gmail.com, and we'll try our best to feature it on our show. But for now, we're going to set aside Final Fantasy VI, also known as Final Fantasy III, from its initial North American release, and we're going to randomly select the next Retro Game of the Week that we'll be playing for the next 7 days. Randomizing now. We're going back in time to 1987.
Woo.
Wow. Way back.
It was developed by Toaplan, but published by a company called Taito.
Know them, love them most of the time.
It was released in Japan as Kaioku Tiger, and it is a vertically scrolling shooter
Oh God.
brought
Come
to North America as the game Twin Cobra.
What console?
Oh yeah, did I not even say that?
Is it arcade?
It's an arcade. Well, hold on. I do need to. Why can't I find it? It was released for arcades. Yes, it's an arcade
Okay.
title.
Okay.
But it's also on Android and iOS and NES and PC and PlayStation and
Oh,
Sega
wow.
Genesis. So it's one of those that like started in the arcades, but then
Sure.
went to
Maybe I'll
different
play it on
consoles.
console.
Yeah, ported to multiple consoles, done through different third-party developers, making several changes or additions. So
Oh, that means they're pretty different.
Yeah.
Well-
Maybe we play arcade.
we do need to look into it, but arcade is going to be like our starting point here.
Sure.
Again, the game is called Twin Cobra. Find a copy this week and play it along with us.
Join us in Discord, please. You can go to discord.gg/newgameplus to get an invite.
Yeah, and thank you for bearing with my post-COVID destroyed voice. I'm sorry about that, you guys.
Hey, it was great,
No,
and we're
you're good.
glad that you're healthy and well.
Absolutely. Great having you. We want to say thank you to all of our producer level supporters the show who support us on patreon.com, including Adam, Alex, Omarian, Anton, Ben, DH Bowser, Ellis, Francesca, Gimbin, Jared, Joey, Jordan, J. Robert, Justin, Clint, Nick Nat, Corey, Lawe, Mal, Maxima, Mr. Latte, Sajin, Shauna, Subsonic Demon, Thomas, Unbelievable, William, and Zion. Appreciate you guys. Thanks, huge thanks to our director level supporters who truly go above and beyond, including Bro Jim, Garlisle, Shane, Tasty Yogurt, Super Hypered, Brunt, And a big thank you to Friendly Cossack.
Yes.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us, for sharing this episode, for bringing us a really great game. We appreciate your time.
Definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, I also have to mention we got some new patrons this week.
New patrons!
Folks, join in our train. I can't say
Phantom
it's a train
train.
now. Yeah, it's not a phantom train. It's a much happier place than that. Rob, Tom Danks, Harold, and Scott,
Welcome.
thanks for hopping aboard.
Thanks.
Thanks for hopping aboard.
Choo-choo.
Thanks.
Choo-choo. All right, you can follow us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Friendly, where would you like them to find you on the interwebs?
I should post on Twitter a lot and make funny videos making fun of Russians. So if that's your thing, you can find me there.
Okay. You can listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Twin Cobra, which is certainly going to be a step down from Final Fantasy VI. Until then, please stay in line with this, guys. I am still Sabin.
I'm Gao.
I'm Edgar.
Ooh, the pervert?
Yeah.
Ooh,
And
he
that's
is a pervert.
and that's Friendly Cossack, who is...
Definitely Sabin.
Oh, okay, there's two of us.
I'm Sabin
us?
too.
Oh, there's three of us. And this has been New Game Plus.